Hey everybody, Erica Ayala here. I am in the main media center at the Santa Giulia ice rink. That is where, right now, actually, Canada and Czechia men's is taking place. This is the first game for both sides. I got to the arena with a lot of Czech fans. They were super excited. Lots of jerseys. They had their face paint and like stickers. They were also very gentlemanly. I was traveling with a colleague of mine working with Olympics.com, and they were very accommodating on the tight shuttle buses. So that was fun. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is Erica Ayala. I am the founder of Black Rosie Media. I am also on assignment here at Milano Cortina, working with Olympics.com. So yesterday, I got to speak to the captains of the United States and Canadian men's teams. I wrote features that are up at Olympics.com. We also, I think, have some video up, but our team has been busy. My colleague got to speak with Henrik Lundqvist. He's doing some commentary here at the Olympics, but I wanted to hop on a little bit early. We are going to talk about the women's team. The preliminaries closed with Finland taking on Canada. For those who've been following us at Black Rosie Media, you know that was a game that was postponed because of neurovirus making its way through the Finnish roster. Unfortunately, there were some other players here and there that were affected, but so we're going to talk about that. We're going to have Rachel and I believe Ava Wood is also joining us. They're going to come on in a little bit, but because I'm double dipping, I am going to have to step away for the men's game. I wanted to come on a little early. So if you have any questions about the Olympic experience, about the men's tournament, what it was like to be at practices, let me know. But there are some higher level things that I wanted to talk about. And if you follow me on Blue Sky, you probably saw that Gary Bettman spoke right behind me. Actually, this is a podium. I've actually done some podcasting and live hits over there, but usually it's reserved for when we get to the knockout stages for players and coaches. Instead of in the mixed media zone, which is right behind it, they will come to the podium. So we're getting close to that stage for the women's tournament. But today we heard from Gary Bettman, as well as a few other people from IIHF and the NHL Players Association. And of course, they're talking about the return of NHL players to the Olympics. And there was an interesting comment that really caught my eye. And I see Rachel's in the studio. We're going to let her in a minute, but let me finish this. There was something that Gary Bettman said that caught my ear, I should say, because I was, as you can see, the stage is behind me because this is usually how I sit. I didn't actually know he was going to be speaking today. But so I wasn't looking at the stage directly, but I could hear him. There's a bunch of speakers and everything. And he said something to the effect of, I don't have the full quote, but we will put up the full quote. But he basically mentioned that the NHL is unique comparative to other Olympic sports, both in winter and summer, because they're the only league that has their season interrupted mid-season because of the games. And I found that really interesting because for those who follow Black Rosie Media, you know we cover the WNBA. I personally have covered the NWSL, and our friends over at Shea Butter FC, we're going to collaborate with them a lot more. They cover the National Women's Soccer League. Of course, the PWHL is literally suspending their season as we speak. So it was really interesting to hear him say that because it's not accurate. It's not accurate, and it hasn't been accurate for a while. So that was interesting. I'm not exactly sure how like tennis, the Grand Slams and the different tournaments that they have, or golf works, but those are also sports that run up in the same season, if you will, as the Olympic season they would be competing in. So I thought that was interesting to say the least. But interesting is often what I say when he speaks. So anyway, there's an interesting comment. About his dating life. I don't know. I'm uninterested in that aspect of his life. But yeah, Gary also, I think, was very dismissive of certain things or tried to skirt some blame or not take responsibility and not answer certain questions, which not completely surprising. But it was a little more contentious than I expected from a press conference where there were 3 different entities represented. But that doesn't completely surprise me. I've heard Gary Bettman speak a few times. So, yeah, but he was kind of building up some of what the NHL properties will be. And a lot of the questions, in fairness, were asked about the NHL properties. It did seem like the IOC, or excuse me, IIHF, felt a little bit on their heels, but we'll have some audio clips over at Black Rosie Media. But Rachel's here, so we're going to have Rachel join. Rachel, you got to hear a little bit of me talking about. Yeah, Gary Bettman spoke today just behind me. I was sitting like this, so I didn't see his face quite intentionally, if I'm being honest. I had work to do anyway. But yeah, I mean, I know you also, of course, cover the NHL for the Locked On Flyers show. What are your thoughts about just some of the commentary that he made? We'll talk first about the NHL being the only league that's impacted.
Listen, they're impacted because they don't plan for it, or they hadn't in the past appropriately, right? If you look at the World Soccer schedule, that's Exhibit A. They have international breaks planned into their schedule since I can't even remember when they didn't, right? They play like 4 or 5 weeks of matches, then they take an international break, right, for 2 weeks. Players go play with their national teams on qualifiers, on other tournaments, then they come back and they restart their season. It's like, oh my God, biggest sport in the world, biggest leagues in the world do this. If Gary Bettman thinks that they're special, they are not. Sorry. They just haven't planned for it in the past, and now they have to, and so it's upsetting their apple cart. But it's like, just do it, it like soccer does.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was.
Sorry, I'm just like, what?
Don't be. You never have to be sorry on Black Rosie Media. Also, yeah, Neko, I don't exactly know what you're alluding to, but if it's not about Gary Bettman, probably not going to talk about it. So we'll keep it moving. But anyway, yeah, again, like I said, some interesting comments. I think also, like, I could feel, and I wasn't even watching them, the tension in these 3 entities: the NHLPA, the IIHF, and the NHL. And so alignment and what that's going to look like for the games in Nice in France in 4 years. There was a lot of conversation about what the NHL properties will look like. I did find this interesting also, Rachel, before we move on. Someone asked if the sanctions for teams like Russia that are upheld at the Olympics and the IIHF would also apply to an NHL sanction, because Gary made it very clear that there are things that we own when we do our tournament that we can't own when it's not our tournament, which I think he was trying to, again, get some digs in. But it was an interesting question. And the answer, Rachel, is that they are going to uphold that. So that's interesting from an NHL perspective, of course, because there's a pretty big deal of a player who's Russian.
Yeah, I think, I assume that's going to be in context to the upcoming World Cup of hockey that the NHL is putting on in 2 years to kind of bridge the gap between Olympic participation that the NHL is doing. But, I think the IIHF is going to change their mind soon. It feels like it's coming. So we'll see if that takes effect in time for that tournament in 2 years. But obviously it affects the women too. So in terms of being able to ice a team in the Olympics and other tournaments. So it is also interesting related to, I know this is like a complete and total left turn, but the Ukrainian athlete sliding athlete with the helmet.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, the IOC can be political and choose to deny an entire country participation, but for the exact same reason and issue, a Ukrainian athlete can't show why the IOC
in memoriam, which is so wild because I was reading an article earlier, and a part of what they're saying as the official governing body is that it's not the message, but it's the placement that was the problem.
Yeah.
Because, you know, placing a painted or spray painted decal, like how much could that impact performance? Like, I don't really understand that as a comment at all. It's like, it wasn't the message, it was where you placed it. What?
Yeah,
that's wild. But, you know, welcome to sports are political until you know, federations say they can't be, you know, episode 1272. I don't know. But there was a women's hockey game, and not originally scheduled, Rachel, for today, but we saw Finland take on Canada. Now, the big story, of course, coming in, Rachel, was that Canada got absolutely annihilated by the United States. And by itself, not surprising, given what we saw at rivalry series. But the part that was heartbreaking, especially for the Canadian captain, Marie-Philip Poulin, is that she was injured in a 5-1 win over Czechia and did not dress for the game against the United States. And she's called Captain Clutch for a reason, specifically, Rachel, because of how she plays against the United States. I mean, I know y'all would have already talked about this, but just, you know, as a recap, your thoughts that MPP was not able to dress, did compete or participate, I should say, in morning skate, but did not compete against Finland.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was... it's obviously unfortunate, and we don't want this because we truly want best on best in this tournament for sure. But, you know, if she's not ready to play, she's not ready to play. And that's, you know, that's sports, you know, it's like your next player up. Right. And, you know, the broadcast in the Finland game talked about Natalie Spooner, and that's why she was included on the roster in case of something like this, with somebody with the leadership and the experience that knows what it's like and can take on a top 6 role on Team Canada. And she was able to do that in this game for sure. I thought, you know, Spooner had a really solid game against Finland, but I think that you look at the impact that she has, the MPP wouldn't have changed anything in the results against USA for sure. I think that maybe they would have scored a goal, but you know, it wouldn't have been a shutout. I don't know, but you can't say for sure. But I do think that ultimately USA was just so dominant over Canada, and Canada played such a poor game overall against USA that it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game. And, you know, maybe they would have scored another goal or two against Finland here, but ultimately I don't think that the tenor of the game would have changed that much with MPP in it, because this is a team sport, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So then let's talk about, again, I know y'all talked about this a little bit, but I just wanted to add some insights, because then what is the problem? What is the problem here? There's something, a nugget, and we've been a little bit delayed on some of our practice and post-game audio for some technical issues. Like, uploading has been a little bit of a challenge here for us. But one of the things that Troy Ryan said, Rachel, is that you and I have talked about this before, but centralization or residency for the United States and Canada has been a thing up until these Olympics, where they would spend several months together. They would compete in open or closed door exhibition games. They'd have several months of team building, figuring out lines, things of that nature. Troy Ryan said at one of the last practices ahead of the preliminary games starting that Canada, when they would centralize, would have anywhere from 30 to 50 different types of exhibitions. And in the lead up to 2026, Rachel, they had 4.
Right.
That's a drastic difference.
It is a drastic difference, but USA had a similar plan and they looked good.
I would agree. So I'm offering that up because, first of all, the difference is wild to me. That's a huge difference. And your point is solid, which brings me to my second point. And another thing that Troy Ryan told us at the practices, he was very bullish. He was asked about the roster, comparative, of course, to the United States, who brought more youths and NCAA players, no NCAA players, all PWHL players on the Canadian women's team. But another piece of this is that he mentioned that, they spent some time in Lugano, Switzerland, just to get used to the time zone change and all of those things. But they were still very much, working through their line pairings. And their lines, even in the game against the United States. And yes, some of this had to do with Marie-Philip Poulin. Natalie Spooner, I believe, did bounce up in the lineup, but the lines were, I just get the sense that there weren't, it was like the concepts of a plan when it came to the Canadian lines.
Well, and that's where, we talked about this at the end of the rivalry series. The U.S. utilized the rivalry series much, much more effectively than Team Canada did, because Canada was trying to still figure out their roster. Then they spent the first two games, like the first series, doing roster management exercises, and then tried to put some different line combinations together in the second two games. So they only had really 2 games to try and figure out. USA was like, nah, we kind of know who we're going with, and there's only 1 or 2 roster spots in question, but we're just going to ride with it, and really figured out their lines effectively right away after the first 2 games, and then spent the second 2 games in the rivalry series just practice. They were practice games for the final roster, essentially. So, and like figuring out the goaltending choices maybe. But I mean, USA just has, and it's remarkable to talk about it this way, because it's not something I ever would have expected. This much of a difference between the two management in terms of putting the roster together and putting an effective team together. But, even this game against Finland, I would say Canada did a very good job of recovering from the USA game. I thought they were a little bit more effective on the forecheck, and I think they followed up much better than they did in the game against USA. But I don't think it was just an absolutely dominant performance in the same way that it could have been, right?
No, that's such a good point, because I'm here on site, and actually Czechia and Canada, it's 7:30 mark, scoreless in the first period. So we don't have, but so I'm about to hop to another game. So I was watching this one, on an Italian feed, mind you. So I maybe I'll be fluent by the time I get back home. I absolutely will not. But one of the things I noticed, and even in watching the goal replays, like in the intermissions, is that first thing, from a Finland perspective, this just hasn't been their tournament. I do think that the neurovirus, it had implications, not just that we were seeing this game today, but the step didn't look, they just didn't look sharp. And I don't think you can fault them. The illness, and virus went so deep into the roster that they had to postpone the game, which is why they played today. And it looked like a team that was recovering from a very violent stomach bug.
And they just ran out of gas later 100%. In the game, right?
Yeah. And so to that point, look at the Watts goal or some of the goals. It's like Canada was that good old saying in hockey, they were getting pucks in deep and then pushing that puck from below the goal line right into the low slot. And Finland was not, they didn't have the step, they didn't have the speed or the vision to be able to recover once they were pushed so deep into their defensive zone.
All right, who gets wraparound goals these days? I mean, come on. That just so rarely happens.
Right.
It's that was just kind of exhaustion, honestly, on Ahola's part, because she had to work so hard all game.
And it's heartbreaking. I mean, I think we all wanted to really see what this Finland team could be like. I still remember 2019 World Championships. And I, on behalf of Finland, am pissed. Like that was wild. I still can't believe that happened. But
I know.
I was
feel
hoping,
worse about it the more time passes, to be
I
honest.
know it was not okay. That was not okay. And you know, I think this was an opportunity, right, to 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 shed some of that, right, at an Olympic Games. This was the first Olympics since that, because that would have been the year after, or excuse me, 2022. Excuse me, year, time, date, who knows? I don't even know if I am Erica El Ayala. I am, but no, but you know, it's been a tough go. It's been a tough go for Finland. We were hoping that they would. It just, but yeah, we've talked about that. So then there, it's not all bad though for Canada, and the one bright spot. And I don't know if MPP being out of the last two games would impact this either way, but that Julia Gosling tip in,
Yes.
come on.
She's had a great tournament. She's honestly, there's been like a couple of Canada players that I've thought have been playing generally very well. Like she is definitely my number one star for Team
100%.
Canada.
And I think she was a little bit of a bubble. I think it was between Gardner, Serdachny, and Gosling. Like one of the three of them was likely on the bubble for this team.
Right.
And Gardner and Gosling were actually on the fourth line today. Gosling moved up.
They were great.
I thought they were fantastic with O'Neill. But then again, like, does Gosling, quote unquote, deserve to be further up in the lineup? I think yes, with her. She's the leading goal scorer. She's got 5 points, 4 of them goals. She picked up 2 points today, right? A goal and an assist. That was a beautiful tip in. You know, but what at the cost of what? Is she better suited to play with players that make more sense? You know, I don't know. And I don't think Canada knows either, which is a little bit of the problem.
Well, it is like sort of the age-old question: do you break up a successful line,
right,
or do you move somebody up who's been playing very well and who's earned it, right?
Right.
So I do think their quarterfinal matchup against Germany is maybe a time to try it out and and break up the line. Like if you're going to do it at any point, this is the time to do it, because it's, you know, the most obvious result that you're going to get if you're Team Canada.
Yeah, 100%. And so you mentioned who the Canada will face. Let's just talk about the quarterfinals, because we know we have 2 tomorrow on the 13th, and then we have 2 the next day. Someone's heart will be broken on Valentine's Day for sure. And no, not just whoever that guy was who professed his love to his ex that he cheated on. What a wild did you saw that story? Right?
My God,
that was insane.
messy.
Oh, so messy. Red flag, #red flag. But Rachel, I know that we have the games. So we've got on the 13th Czechia and the US play, and then on the 14th Canada and Finland play. But again, I'm down in the bowels of this arena where the men are playing, and there's a skirmish. Ooh, Crosby getting into it. Oh, hello. I'm like, there's a little chirping and then some going on. But so can you give the update? You mentioned who the US is playing, but what is the official update on what the quarterfinal matchups are?
Yeah, so we have tomorrow we have Czechia playing Sweden, and then we have USA playing Italy. And then on the 14th, we have Canada playing Germany, like I mentioned, and then Finland playing Switzerland, which to me, that's the most exciting of the matchups.
100%.
Because I think Switzerland has like really upped their game this tournament overall, and against where Finland is right now. Like, are we... is something going to happen here? The Czechia-Sweden game should be good, because I think Czechia has been so up and down this tournament.
As they are wont to be.
Correct. And Sweden dominated Group B, but now this is a challenge against a Group A team. Like, can they step up their gameplay against the tougher competition? Like, to me, that's the big question coming out of there.
Huge test. And I think there is a world in which they can. Absolutely. But there's also a world in which Czechia going Czechia,
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I know.
And that could mean so many different things. That could mean they absolutely dominate and score 5+ goals. That could mean they get a 3.
Correct.
Isn't it wild that like 3 goals seems to be like you cannot trust a 3 goals. If Czechia scores 3 goals, literally anything can happen, including them blowing a 3-0 lead in the last 3 minutes of a game. So that's wild. I think they have to score. They either have to keep it super tight or they have to blow it out of the water. But that could be a really good matchup. Go ahead if
I
you have something
do.
on Czechia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to also note with the scheduling of this, with Canada and Finland playing this rescheduled game, it is nice that their games, they get a day off because
Right.
their 2 quarterfinal games are on Saturday. So
Right.
I do appreciate that from the schedule gods.
No,
there.
yeah, 100%. It worked out for them for sure. I want to go back to though Finland versus Switzerland. I mean, when you have Sweden, Finland, Switzerland, and just the greater landscape of women's hockey, they are always jockeying for that true number 3 behind the United States and Canada. We've seen Finland overcome Canada in world championships. We've seen Switzerland compete for a gold medal and ultimately win silver in Olympics. So Finland and Switzerland have that history. Sweden has been close at times, but then they've had disruptions and just discrepancies with their federation that I think really pushed them to where they were relegated, right? All of that relegation happened at a really crazy time for the federation. They did dominate in Group B. I think they have a really good chance of finding their way back. And so, yeah, that's going to be a good matchup like we talked about. But I want to talk about Finland and Switzerland because Switzerland has come into this tournament. Laura Stalder, Alina Mueller, they have that young Ivana Way who got the game-winning goal in the overtime shootout win against Czechia. They have gone on record, Rachel, mincing no words, that they expect to hit the podium. And this is the first test, not just because literally it's the quarterfinals, but also because they're taking on a team like Finland. Now, as we mentioned, this just might not be Finland's tournament. It seems like it's really measuring up that way, Rachel, but this is a really big win for Switzerland to make good on the promises that they made coming into the tournament.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Obviously, these are the 2 teams that were at the bottom of Group A, right, in this tournament. And I think that Finland has a more depth to their team. Like Switzerland, has Alina Mueller, and they have a great goaltender, but beyond that, is the depth there? And that's the big question for me. Whereas I think that Finland, when they're at their best, has more weapons to go to here.
That's fair. And Rachel, again, I was listening to this broadcast in Italian, but what I can say is that I know that Leah Hextall and Sammy Jo Small have been doing individual play-by-play, and then sometimes they collab, which is what I think they'll continue to do for the quarterfinals. But I know for USA Canada, it was a 2-woman booth. But do you know who was calling that game for the North American market?
It was Sammy Jo Small.
It was. Okay, this allows me to tell my Sammy Jo Small story. I don't know if I have it with me, but I do have our Black Rosie Media pins in the media scrums. And so Sammy Jo Small, I got to meet her through the PHF or in that heyday when she was with the Toronto 6. And so she's always been super kind. Every time she sees me here, she's like, hey, Erica. So she's doing the games by herself. And so I gave her a pin. I was just going to gift it to her. And she's like, oh, well, we can trade. And I was like, okay, thanks. And so she had 2 Canada pins. I at the time had none. And she said, you get to choose. And so one was the traditional kind of maple leaf that we see a lot. The other was a smaller one, still had the maple leaf, but also had the Olympic rings. And I was like, you know what? I think I want that one. She's like, oh, good choice. Alexis saying, I want a Black Rosie pin. Subscribe to the newsletter. Although I suspect you might have an I don't know. You might have to work that connection you have. But so then she told me, Rachel, that the pin that I selected was from her playing days.
Oh my God. Amazing.
She let me choose. She didn't say, I was like, is it okay if we trade for this one? She's like, absolutely. She's like, that's actually a pin that I got during my playing days. She's like, I thought I should bring some just to be prepared and to trade. And so she has a Black Rosie Media pin and I have a pin. I don't have it. I don't keep it on my lanyard because I don't want to lose it. I'm like, I am not trading that, but it's just a nice little story. I have a Sammy Jo Small from her playing days pin and I'm very grateful. She's always very nice and accommodating. We talk at the intermission, so it was Sammy Jo, and I can hear her usually from where I'm sitting, and I think she's been doing a fantastic job. Everyone's been great here. Catherine Tappan is here, Kenzie is here, so it's been great to kind of see the community come together. But I just wanted to share that story. Rachel, I do have to get going soon. It is Canada did score late in this first period. Just as we were talking about Sammy Jo Small, I think that was the Sammy Jo Small bump that they got. We're going to go with that. But so they're leading Czechia 1-0 right now. I am going to have to head upstairs to the press tribune, as we say at the Olympics, but not before we answer a critical question here. I mean, is Canada going to be all right? Is Marie-Philip Poulin going to be all right? I mean, do you think we'll see her for the rest of the tournament?
I think we will. I think we'll see her. I think they were being cautious, and I think they're going to continue to be cautious. But I think, if I had to put money on it, which I won't, I would say she would come back for the semifinal. But, it's obviously better to get her back in as soon as she can, but being careful about it. So I would say for the semifinal.
I'm conflicted because that is the smart play. And this is Marie-Philip Poulin that we're talking about. One of the fiercest competitors, very mild spoken when in a scrum, and on the ice is absolutely vicious in the best way. I think that I think that there is some caution happening here. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think that if it's just precautionary, I don't think MPP is happy about it. But then I wonder, is it a little bit more than day to day? She did not need to suit up against Finland for this game. The Canada was going to advance either way. We knew that. Their only loss was to the United States, so that still would have put them in position to, they're in Group A either way, so they were good to go. So that's why you think, okay, it's precautionary. But even like seeing some of the video of her walking in, I think I think she'll be okay, but I don't know that she'll be at 100%. Before the tournament ends. I think it's not completely serious where they have to shut her down, but I think it's maybe a little more serious than they're letting on, which is understandable as well.
Yeah, I think so. But it'll be interesting to see after how these quarterfinal games go.
Yeah, 100%. So I think actually, I don't know. So because we talked about what Czechia needs to do. And that they're taking on Sweden. And then, of course, we talked a lot about Finland, Switzerland. Officially, what is your game to watch in the women's quarterfinals?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be Czechia, Sweden for me, because I really want to see what Sweden's got. And if Czechia can put together a complete game that's consistent and not cross the line from a penalty perspective, if they can play a clean game. I just have the biggest questions about both of those teams. That's versus fair. Any of the other teams. So that's why I want to see them play head to head.
That's fair. And we don't argue, we don't disagree for the sake of entertainment here. That being said, I am going to pick the other game because it just gives us another opportunity to talk about some great women's hockey. And it shouldn't be surprising. I kind of already alluded to this, but I just love how Switzerland, at least in their mind, has come in as the underdogs. And I think there's something to that and how we've seen them play, what's going on in their bracket. And so I want to know, can they really play can they walk it like they talk it? And they did against Czechia. because I asked Alina Mueller, I asked Laura Stalder after that game, because they were down a goal with like 3 or so minutes left in the third period, and they forced overtime. And I asked, what was said? I asked Alina Mueller. I asked Laura Stalder, who, gosh, I wish we could see her in the PWHL. I'm glad she's playing pro, but I'm also selfish and wish she would come back to North America. But anyway, both of them, 2 separate interviews at separate times. They weren't in the pass of the mixed zone together. They both told me without hesitation, Rachel, nobody said anything. Nothing was said. Everything was understood. And to me, that is just like the most, like, that is some confidence. That is some laser focus. And I'm so curious to see if they can really hit another gear as we go into the knockout stages.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
but again, when we have 2 of us or more, sometimes we have more, we get to kind of pick more than one game of the week. So Rachel is got the most questions about Czechia versus Sweden. I want to see if Switzerland is going to step it up. Yes, I think there is a little, I don't want to say asterisk, but I think you have to consider that this is a Finland team that has not shown up exactly as they had hoped. But hey, that's why we play the games. But if you're watching live or on replay, let us know, what is your game to watch in the women's quarterfinals. But Rachel, I've got to go upstairs and do the boys hockey. I got to speak to Sid Crosby a little bit, as well as Austin Matthews, both playing tonight. Sid the kid already got into a little bit of a skirmish, so I'm going to head out soon. But I think you had a final thought before we wrap up.
Oh, I just want to shout out my live stream outfit of the day, because I've been wearing throwback stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. This is like, I got my OG NWHL Connecticut whale.
I love it.
So there's more to come. But
play Breast Bonanza for Rachel's fit check. I love that. As you said that, I was like, because my screen's a little smaller than usual today, because I have like a million tabs open. But I was like, oh my gosh, that is the whale, where the hockey stick looks like the mouth. Oh, genius.
Yep.
Genius. Well played, Rachel. Well played. Well, Rachel, before we head out, let folks know where they can find you.
I'm mostly on Blue Sky at our Miriam. Also do the men's stuff on Locked On Flyers.
Absolutely. And again, my name is Erica L. Ayala. I'm the founder here of Black Rosie Media. So grateful to have a talent like Rachel Donner hold down the fort in North America. So grateful to you, Rachel. You've done a great job with the live streams. And well, we did have a little bit of time when you were with Preston, but this is the most time that we've had together since I came to Italy. So I'm very grateful for this time.
Well, you're killing it over there too.
Oh, so. Thank you. Thank you so much. And for those who do follow us on Black Rosie Media and are familiar with my Seattle Kraken coverage, make sure you stay tuned, because I've been getting my rounds in from either former, current, and even one future Kraken player in Oscar Fisker Molgaard. So we'll have that audio for you. Make sure you're following Black Rosie Media or the 206 Sports Collective for that Seattle Kraken adjacent content. Also, I got to speak, Rachel, with Jeremy Swayman about his outdoor game fisticuffs, which he had a hilarious answer to. He's an honorary 206 Sports Collective topic because he's from Alaska. We know he plays for Boston, but that man, he caps so hard for Alaska, and that's Pacific Northwest. So we're going to have some stuff on Sway as well, including on if he plans to get into any more goalie fights. But that'll do for this live stream, a post-game live stream of At Even Strength, which is our women's hockey podcast here at Black Rosie Media. If you're not already subscribed and following, please do so and hit the notification bell so you will know when we go live. We should have another live coming up at the semis. We'll do a recorded wrap-up for the quarterfinals. But again, for Rachel Donner, Erica L. Ayala reporting live here in Milano. I'm about to go upstairs to watch Canada take on Czechia. Thank you as always. And I say this, and I always mean it, please be kind to yourself. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of people saying that we shouldn't feel certain ways about the things that are going on. Be kind to yourself, stay true to yourself, and hopefully you can extend that kindness to others. All right. Peace out, everybody. Thanks again for joining us on Black Rosie Media.